Naturalism is a literary movement that was used by authors to scientifically observe the natural aspects of humans and life. It was used to describe and sort of break down the factors of life that are natural. This includes things like genetics, instincts, environments, and sometimes different social conditions. Authors like the ones we discussed this week, Jack London and Stephen Crane, are most notable for their use of naturalism. Jack London wrote The Law of Life, which is a short story that discusses the biological factors that contribute to behavior and people's modes or ways of trying to survive. At the beginning of The Law of Life, the narrator depicts an old man named Kush Kush who is in a very snowy climate. He sits by a fire and he contemplates the role that nature plays in his life, and the role that everyone must play in life in order to survive in um, the climate and environment that he is in. It says, but one task did nature set the individual. Did he not perform it? He died. Did he perform it? It was all the same. He died. Nature did not care. This quote to me means that there are various things that we have to do in order to survive. This is just the way of life. And even when we do these things, we are going to eventually die just because it is the circle of life. Um, Another quote that discusses this is, he remembered how he had abandoned his own father on an upper reach of the Klondike one winter. Um, I think both of these quotes actually, describe how a life of survival through tough times and having to look after oneself, and focus on survival of yourself personally, sometimes forces you to um, leave behind family members, such as what Kush Kush did. These quotes even sort of discuss how life can be beyond our control, how things like forces like nature can create environmental pressures that, in this example, forced Kush Kush to leave his father. Um, while to me, this story seems a little sad because he's obviously forced to leave his father behind. It doesn't seem too out of the ordinary because of the environmental conditions in which he's in, um, because his life is so much harsher, and those are just the decisions that he's forced to make. I haven't experienced something like that before, but to an extent, I can somewhat understand the need to survive, especially if I was put in an environment or a situation such as the one that he was in. Um, these thoughts and ideas led me to think about what the theme of this story could be, which I have interpreted to be that death is just simply a part of life. It's just natural, which kind of connects to the title of the story, which is The Law of Life. Um, then, when it came to reading and interpreting Stephen Crane's story, The Open Boat, I had a bit more difficult time understanding the naturalism in the story. I had read London's story first, so I assumed and I kind of just imagined that the same writing and storylines would be reflected in Crane's work as well. That was not the case because London's story had more of a steelier tone compared to Crane's. And the open vote focuses a little bit more on the men working together in the boats to save themselves and to survive, which is a little different because they're working together versus Kush Kush working by himself, I suppose. Um, from the dialogue in The Open Boat, it says, Captain, by the way, I believe they abandoned the life-saving station there about a year ago. And if I am going to be drowned, why, in the name of the seven mad gods who rule the sea, was I allowed to come thus far and contemplate sand and trees? Was I brought here merely to have my nose dragged away as I was about to nibble the sacred cheese of life? It is preposterous. If this old ninny woman Fate cannot do better than this, she should be deprived of the management of men's fortunes. Um, from the language that Crane used in this quote, um, such as the word fate, which really stuck out to me, it made me think that they were just um, their discussions were the author's way of describing how roles or how the role that fate or nature plays in our lives. The use of the word preposterous also tells me that the situation they are in is also something that is just out of their control. They're being stranded on the lifeboat. Obviously, that's not something that they planned for. It just kind of highlighted how sometimes life throws things your way that you're sometimes not prepared for. Um, so both of these stories just made me think about the role that nature plays in my life and of the things that, I cannot control myself. One of those things for me, is just the weather, I suppose, which, sometimes forces me to cancel plans or push things back to kind of accommodate the environment around me. Um, this also makes me think that even though not everyone goes through the same situations that Kosh Kush and those four men went through, that there are still many different ways in which our lives can um, spiral out of control or just be out of our reach, in terms of us guiding it ourselves. Um, this, sometimes forces us to look past human emotions and to make decisions in order to survive and to make life work just with what we have. Um, Another thing is that these stories kind of made me curious to learn more about how literary naturalism is used by some authors today, if it is still used by authors today, and how they use it in their writing and what kind of stories do they have that kind of pertain to the um, aspects of our life today. Okay.